Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to Stablecoin Stories, and we're going to be talking about stablecoin news. I've been working with the team. This is Board, by the way. I've been working with the team over at Stable Finance for many months now, almost a year now, I think, and we've been doing these sessions on a recurring basis, recurring these podcasts live, if you will, having really great discussions, talking about the macro impact of stablecoins, but also kind of diving into specific categories. We've got some fun updates to share on the progress of Stable, and also have a wonderful guest, Quentin, who's going to be talking a little bit about what's happening in the stablecoin industry specific to Australia. So before we jump into that, maybe we do some quick intros. Jason, why don't you go first, then Jamie, and then Quentin would be great to hear from you as well.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back on the show again. I do a little bit of operations, kind of a jack of all trades here at Stable.Finance. Lots of momentum for the platform, and we're starting to see it take off. Even though the rest of the crypto markets seem to be a little bit tumultuous, stablecoins aren't going anywhere. So happy to be here. Always good to connect with you again, Board, and look forward to learning more from our guest on the show.
All right, Jamie, over to you.
Hi, guys and ladies. I'm Jamie McCormick. I'm one of the CMOs on the team. So usually I don't do these, but we've had a lot of work that we've been doing for the last couple of months. So I'm here to give some updates.
We roped you into it, Mr. CMO. So
it's fine. We've had like 30 plus days of non-stop rain here in Dublin, so it's nice to do something.
Very nice. Yeah, you can have some human interaction. That's great. Quentin is behind the Numerium 3 account, in case you didn't pick up on that. So, Quentin, would be great to hear a bit about your background and then what is taking up most of your time these days.
Yes. Hi everyone. Thanks for hosting me on this show. So yeah, my name is Quentin. I am basically the CTO of AUDF, which stands for Forte AUD. And basically we are an Australian dollar stablecoin, fully backed by Australian dollar. So it's a simple model, nothing algorithmic or anything like that. And I'm currently working on a few different things, basically on some FX engines and stuff like that, basically.
Oh, very cool. Well, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. I think for today, where it might make sense to go in terms of agenda is let's talk a little bit about some larger news in the stablecoin industry, and then talk about stable updates. What's been going on since our last show in terms of tech, in terms of news, in terms of partnerships, and then we can dive into the Australia market. So, Jason, do you want to touch on some of the big news stories of the last few weeks? Oop, Jason, you there? Hello.
Sorry, guys, my Bluetooth is a little bit acting up. Why don't we switch it over to Jamie first, and then I'll circle back after him because I think we have a lot of updates to roll through, and I need to fix something technical.
All right, no worries. All right, Jamie, over to you.
Sure. So we've picked out two pieces of news from the last couple of weeks. So the first is that the Visa CEO has announced stablecoin settlement has reached now 4.6 billion, which is like up 18 times from the previous year. So this is always a win. Even if there's TradFi that's getting involved, like there's more adoption that's happening on the stablecoin side. And so they can take USDC payments in and then kind of settle to people in fiat. Then we've also got the JPYC has launched a lending market on Morpho. So you can basically borrow the Japanese yen stablecoin. You put up different collateral, so whether it's like Bitcoin or Ethereum or USDC, and then when you have it, you can lend it out, you can deposit it, you can get a yield. So it's always interesting to see what's happening over there.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about brands like Visa and JP Morgan, we all know this, but the train has left the station. There's no turning back. These businesses will adopt digital payments. They will start using stable coins. It's just an inevitability. I think the biggest question is how many customers or consumers will actually know or care, because a lot of this will be happening on the back end. But nonetheless, the technology that we've been all exploring for close to a decade now is being fully integrated into these behemoths, which is great to see. And then, I think that's a good segue to what's going on specifically with Stable. And for anybody who's listening now or in the future, I think it would be good, since it's been a bit of time, just to do a quick elevator pitch on Stable for anyone who isn't familiar with it, so they can get understanding of what you guys are trying to focus on, and then maybe we can talk about some of the updates.
Sure. So the Stable protocol was founded by Fran. He's the NZDS issuer with Tokenized, and he ran into a problem several years ago. I think it was DFX that got hacked, or there was an exploit anyway. So out of that, with discussions, he wanted to set up a stablecoin and RWA. And what I mean here is like tokenized gold, tokenized silver, tokenized commodities decks that specialize for it, because a lot of the dexes that are out there are kind of tailored for crypto or meme coins or Bitcoin or any of those things there as well. So what makes our platform different is we're using off-chain prices from the FX market, and that's what sets the price there. And we put out some stuff on our LinkedIn there the other day. We actually did an analysis with gold hitting 5,000 last week. We had a look at aerodromes prices and kind of how the prices kind of fluctuated and went up and down. They're all over the shop, whereas our prices kind of like pretty much met that bang on. So every time that there's a price movement in, say, the gold market against USD, our price is adjusting. So we're not kind of waiting for pools to kind of be adjusted. That's in there as well. So we've, like, it's 2 years now over 2 years that I've been working on the project. We kind of launched properly last year. We've done a lot of work to kind of pipe up to the broader DeFi ecosystem, and a lot of that was kind of done behind the scenes. And we've kind of launched with some integrations there at the start of January. So if you go to our Dune Analytics, we're starting to see like proper programmatic flow flowing through the decks. Base is very popular. Polygon is very popular. And we basically are specialized in non-USD stablecoins. So that's kind of where with AUDF, it's really interesting because like we also have like NZDS. So we're very kind of curious to see what sort of like flow there is between those two markets. I was doing an analysis there a little while ago on ZARP, which is the one you had the guys on a couple of weeks ago. And like we're seeing like a lot of trading going on between like the like CMGNC or one of the Naira ones there as well. So it's always interesting to see how kind of like the USD to Aussie dollar market is going, but then also kind of we're seeing kind of some of these regional markets kind of show up. So basically curated decks for stablecoins and a limited selection of tokenized commodities. That's what it is.
And just a quick follow up for the layman like myself, the understanding is that the trades and the prices are going to be much more stable. There will be less volatility versus many of the other options in the crypto ecosystem. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, with our approach, we've got a more accurate price that reflects kind of what's actually happening off blockchain. So when, say, like the dollar and the euro, there's a big tank, there can be somewhat of a lag between, say, Uniswap and some of these other areas where the price will get changed. Whereas with our approach, we're taking those signals from off chain, we're adjusting our price for the trading to happen as close to that. I mean, there's a teeny little lag that's there as well. But then we're seeing a lot of trading go in. So it's been really interesting to kind of watch the, Polygon scan and base scan over the last couple of weeks because, we're just seeing, a huge amount of trading going on, kind of like sweeping across the pools back and forth and generating swap fees for our LPs as kind of the price fluctuates there as well. And it's the same with gold. And gold's actually quite interesting because like a lot of our trading for the FX coins happens kind of between like 10 p.m. UTC on a Sunday, which is like when Sydney opens, and it kind of wraps up at around 10 p.m. on a Friday, which is when the US markets close. So the stablecoin side of things is very much tied to kind of the FX markets, but gold is just like 7 days a week, nonstop.
Yeah, makes sense. And for those who participate in in trading and DeFi, you know, lost fees and improper trading prices can really damage one's portfolio. So what you guys are doing is really important. Sorry to
I
the
just
people who
wanted to
take the fees. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this and kind of just like dive in. You know, Stable is a proactive automated market maker, so we're dynamically concentrating the liquidity, those pools around these oracles. And you know, as people trade in and out of those pools, sometimes you can experience slippage where there's not enough of one asset, so it prices that asset and starts to change the pricing. But with FX and RWAs, a majority of this price discovery is actually occurring off the chain. It's not really supposed to be two crypto assets that are trading against each other. These have to reflect the real world model. And that's where this Oracle is so important. And for these types of assets, our platform is optimized to, create this capital efficiency and just a little bit of efficiency when you're talking about moving around, tens of millions or even hundreds of millions and billions of dollars of capital really makes a big difference. So we're a little bit more specialized in some of the other dexes that are out there for this very reason, and sort of how the math behind our AMM works.
Got it. Yeah, really helpful. Cool. What else do we want to cover in terms of stable updates?
So I can do a quick run through because I know we're here to have a chat with Quentin. I won't talk about the rugby. I'm Irish. So anyway, so firstly, a couple of things. So we have a trading competition going on for the stable token. There's 500 USDC, which is going on between now and the end of February. There's information on our blog. There's information in our Discord, and it's just to help with trading volume there as well. Before Christmas, we launched our issuer co-marketing program, and we're very delighted to have the team from Forte join that as well. So that's taken on a couple of different people now as well. So that's kind of helping us kind of boost the TVL on the platform. We also have two major integrations that we've been working on for some time. The first is OpenOcean. So they integrated with us at the start of January. So if you look at our Dune analytics, you'll kind of see from mid-January onwards, just the trading volume's just been, going from strength to strength. And then at the end of January there, we integrated with KyberSwap. So initially on Base, there was a couple of teething and problems on Polygon, and we're very grateful for JT and the Polygon team for giving us that introduction. So we're already now seeing kind of like the Polygon trading is starting to go through there as well. And all of those things have kind of opened us up to the broader DeFi ecosystem that's there. I'll come back to that in a little bit. But basically, we've gone through 10 million. There's about 4 to 5 million worth of trading through there, which for a niche stablecoin DEX that's mainly focused on non-USDs is quite a lot. But it's growing from strength to strength. Just to kind of highlight one of those there as well. So like the EuroC and USDC pool on Base has been really strong. Now, there's only 30 grand-ish TVL in that pool, but that's supported in the last 30 days over $4.2 million worth of swaps there as well. So that's generating real swap volume and swap yield for LPs. Obviously, it fluctuates day to day, but it's kind of coming in at around 14%. And the swap fees are being generated in like USDC or EuroC, depending on what the output currency is. And then we have that being pushed down on Merkle as well. So there's some additional rewards that are there. PaxG is also very popular, as I said. Smaller amounts. Like there's a very big behavioral difference between PaxG and EuroC. Like with EuroC, we just see various different trading kind of going one way or the other. Whereas with PaxG, the gold, it's just like a lot of small amounts, but just steady the whole time. And with kind of opening up to all of these different aggregators and integrations, it's been fascinating looking at who's actually using it. We're going to be putting out a series of articles kind of demystifying DeFi through Brave New Coin over the next couple of weeks. But we have a lot of solvers that are using the platform. Even though we don't support crypto, we're seeing like wrapped Bitcoin, Coinbase Bitcoin, wrapped Ether, Ethereum. You know, we're kind of sitting like there's trades that are going on from like Bitcoin to something else, but it's going through a currency like USD to USDC on our pool and then kind of continue on. So we're kind of sitting in the middle of that, which is quite interesting. Obviously, there's the various different bots that are going on. You know, the kind of protocols that I'm seeing mentioned are who's who of DeFi. I mean, like you've got obviously Uniswap, we've got Morpho. There's a lot of those kind of atomic trades that are going on. DFX, Curve, Sushi Swap, obviously OpenOcean and KyberSwap themselves. And various other different protocols. Like we've seen a few trades coming through Binance DEX as well, which is great to see, because it just means that there's a hell of a lot more turnover through our pools, and every single one of those trades is generating fees for the LPs. And then also what we're seeing then is a drastic increase in kind of retail trades, where it's kind of just from one crypto to the other. And obviously a lot of that's coming through OpenOcean and KyberSwap. So really what we have right now is there's probably only about 3 to 4% of trades that are actually taking place on like the app.stable.finance, the DApp, like the website. The vast majority of it is happening programmatically straight through the smart contracts, which is great. You know, it just means that, you know, the pools aren't sitting there. They're not just sitting there dormant. Like there's a lot of trading that's going on, and you know, some tokens are a little bit busier than other ones. But yeah, like it's been a really, last year was a very tough year in terms of kind of like trying to get all these pipework in place. Very thankless, I'll be honest with you. Like a lot of us have been working late nights and all that, but you know, the crypto industry and the stablecoin industry has been very good to us. We had a few people who've, you know, looked at what we're doing and said, yeah, we definitely want to get on board. The aggregators have really kind of looked at it, and like we're getting feedback saying, look, you guys are doing something that's different to the rest of the industry. So that's kind of where they've weighed in to kind of get those integrations and expedite them, which has been fantastic. And you know, so we've gone through 10 million. Hopefully it'll be 15 million in not too long, and then 20 and onwards there, as we kind of just like push more and more volume through. But it's still early days. So that's going to be updates from the stable side.
Yeah, appreciate that, and really do recommend that everyone, you know, go to Stable. You can see their X handle here in the listener. So go check them out, Stable.finance. It is a really important piece of infrastructure to understand if you're serious about the crypto market. And I think just with sort of the overall trajectory of global shakiness and currency adjustments, it's going to be in your favor to understand this space. And kudos to you guys for just working through, you know, the bear markets, bull markets, and building something that's really important. So why don't we go a little bit deeper into what our guest is here to share about, which is the Australia market and what specifically is happening on that continent. So Quentin, maybe we can start with just kind of a high level conversation with, you know, what does the Australian, you know, stablecoin market look like? What are perceptions amongst businesses, you know, consumers? Where are things at today? Where do you think things can go?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. So basically, just to give a little bit of context, at Forte, Forte is a TradFi business that has been in basically trading since about 15 years, in various asset classes, equities, bonds, etc. So everything very TradFi. And basically, there was some sort of realization. The founder of Forte lives in Australia, in Sydney, and he basically started to see, especially around 2018, 2019, a lot of interest for a lot of players to use crypto for remittances, basically. And it must be said that in Australia, there are a lot of Asian remittances typically from China. That's the largest country. There's supposedly about I think about $100 million a day of remittances into Australia, so from China, so which is a massive amount, and some of those remittances are using stablecoin because it's either more efficient or there may also be some angle around being able to evade some capital controls as well. So basically, we started to serve these remittance players, and out of the interest that started to appear around Australia, that's where we thought it would be useful to create an Australian dollar stablecoin, so that funds can basically flow more easily and more quickly between different countries, basically.
Yep, got it. And in terms of the earlier part of my question, what are just kind of general perceptions in the market around stable coins? Is it something that you feel has grown significantly, last 6 months, last year? Like, how are people feeling about it?
Yeah. So to be fair, I think the pickup, especially about Australian dollar stablecoins, is still very slow, much slower than what of course we've seen on the US dollar stablecoins. Just because I guess most of the people that are trading in crypto in Australia are very used to buy and sell in US dollar stablecoin like Circle and Tether, and they are not yet completely used to use, I guess, Australian dollar stablecoins. Now, that being said, over the last, I'd say, 6 months, we have seen some increased interest in the market that has been actually materialized by different stablecoins popping up. So we used to only have one other stablecoin, which is called AUDD, and now we have 4 Australian dollar stablecoins. So there's AUDD, there's AUDF, which is us, there is AUDM, and there is AUDX. So that, I guess, highlights a little bit like the fact that there is interest in the market and that players are starting to pop up a bit from everywhere. And as a matter of fact, one use cases where
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
We actually managed to crack something, and where I believe there is quite some interest is basically tokenized government bonds. So here we're talking about Australian dollar denominated Australian government bonds, and we have actually tokenized one of those bonds for a notional amount of about 2 million Australian dollar, and all the coupon payments and the payment at maturity is happening in AUDF, and basically by using that, you allow everything to flow on the blockchain, which is very efficient, and which also allows this tokenized government bond to also be fractionalized, to be sold in very small units. So that is something, a product that we are seeing some interest in. Now, that being said, the current interest that we're seeing is, I'd say, mostly institutional for now. So we see more businesses and institutions being interested in acquiring either tokenized government bonds or stablecoins, and the interest from retail is I'd say catching up, but it's much slower than we anticipated.
Yeah, understood. But I think much like the stable team, you guys are building for the future and what is coming. And in fact, I believe you guys got noticed and selected to work with Circle's ARC program. So would love to hear a little bit about that and maybe what it was specifically that they were interested in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I guess it all grew from a long-standing relationship we have with Circle. So Circle is a partner we've been working with for many years now, and I guess they identified AUDF as one of the, I'd say, more mature regulated Australian dollar stablecoin, similar to their own token, USDC and EURC. And together with other partners, I believe there is also a Brazilian dollar, Brazilian real stablecoin that has been selected. There is a Canadian dollar stablecoin that has been selected. There is a Korean won stablecoin, and I believe there is also a Filipino peso stablecoin. So together with this sort of initial set of stablecoins, they are about to launch their own blockchain called ARC. And on that blockchain, they're also currently working on implementing an FX engine that will allow to work slightly differently than let's say the regular dexes like Uniswap or Stabull, for example, where basically the price discovery will happen off chain. So basically it will be more similar to a quoting system where you basically get a quote off chain, and you agree on the quote off chain, and then you basically sign a message, and the settlement does happen on chain. So the stable coins will be exchanged between the buyer and the seller on chain, but the price at which they agree to trade, that is basically agreed off chain. One of the advantages of that system is that it allows you to go really high frequency, which some blockchains do not support, as well as being able to price very tightly, basically. So I'm very curious to see how that will work out, and we're of course very stoked to have been selected as their Australian dollar partner.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are a few a few players in the space, so you guys have a nice boost by being selected by such a large partner.
Indeed.
Question for him as well. That's really quite interesting to learn about this. My question is, like, how do you see the tokenized government bonds being used as reserves for AUDF in that particular way? Like, how is it sort of playing out mechanicalistically, I guess, would be the question.
Yeah. So okay. So I guess we use the government bond in two different ways. So one is to use it as a reserve backing AUDF. In that instance, I believe we'd probably still go for a traditional government bond. And the purpose of backing AUDF with a mix of actual fiat cash as well as Australian dollar government bonds is to basically enhance the yield, which part of it we redistribute to users. Now, about the tokenized government bond, that is more something that we see as an investment instrument that either businesses or maybe high net worth individuals might want to tap into instead of having a savings account, which is probably like yielding something, but not a lot. While if they hold a tokenized government bond, they basically get a very low risk because it's linked to the Australian government, as well as having a very decent return, typically higher than what a regular bank savings account can offer.
Yeah, a question I think for users of our platform that would love to see some trading action. Do you kind of foresee maybe a trading pair between these tokenized government bonds and maybe the AUDF itself, where the tokenized bond is used for more of a savings and a store of value, while the AUDF is more used for a direct payments and remittance instrument?
Yeah, of course. That is definitely something that we can imagine. Um, I guess we would need to work out a little bit the mechanics around the pricing, because bond pricing has their, I'd say, their own specificity. Bonds typically trade, or I mean, can trade below par, depending on what the coupon yield is versus where the actual interest rate in the market is. So those are some particularities, which means that it's, I mean, anyone is like, we welcome anyone to buy tokenized government bonds, but um, it's maybe not as straightforward as just buying AUDF, for example.
Yes, and I think that we can safely say that we're looking to uh, list these types of assets on our platform and design Oracle solutions with some, Oracle providers in the future around the pricing of these assets, so that way they can be traded in this decentralized manner. So that's something to look forward to. Everybody's sort of got their heads together on this as these new financial instruments come into existence. And we're very excited to see that you're at the forefront of thinking along these types of lines.
Yeah.
Somewhat related, what's the regulatory environment feel like in Australia today? You talked a little bit about in certain regions, people will default to U.S. dollar pairs, but obviously, like there are many stable coins around the world. Australia, of course, is trying to grow its own. So as a builder, what's your perception of how the government and large businesses are looking at stablecoins right now, and does it feel different than say 5 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. It has progressed a lot, and I think it was very required, because we so just for context, the stablecoin regulation, or at least the draft of the regulation, has now been published probably a few months ago. And before that, especially like I'd say about a year or two ago, we had this regulatory uncertainty and unclarity, which was very detrimental to the business, because some of the exchanges that we were listed on started to unlist us because they were worried, because there were talks about the regulation that would come up, but no clear perspective of what the regulation would contain. And so, just to avoid any potential issue, they prefer to enlist like Australian dollar stablecoins, rather than take the risk of potentially having like a regulation that may not be favorable. Now the regulation has come. It is favorable. We were one of the first stablecoins to be regulated under this new regulatory regime, and I guess it's very beneficial, and that is what the market was expecting, I guess, for actual real stablecoin adoption.
Got it. Well, that's great to hear, and hopefully things continue in that direction. So, aside from regulation, and perhaps incumbents who are a little bit resistant to this, any other challenges just faced, that are facing a new stablecoin issuer in gaining traction and getting larger, becoming competitive? What's been, if you were to rewind to your early days, and if you were kind of restarting today, what are some of the other challenges that issuers might face?
Yeah, I guess it's on many levels. But I guess the biggest challenge is managing the growth of the stablecoin. And it's but I guess it's a little bit the same with any kind of business. It's a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem, because you want to incentivize, or you want people to use your stablecoin, but people that want to use your stablecoin, they will look at where can it be used, and so when you go to the people where to convince them to accept your stablecoin, they will look at, okay, but what's your user base? And so you're a little bit stuck with trying to convince both sides to use your stablecoin, and it's not that straightforward. Now, I believe what we managed to do is to get, we have a subset, a niche of, let's say, institutional players that are using our stablecoin. We do see a volume of around 200 million per month. That's trading, and that's mostly linked to, as I said, remittance businesses. And so we hope that we can later expand and take that as a first niche, and then expand that niche into broader areas of use cases.
All right, awesome, thank you. Jason, why don't we go over to you? I mean, if you're speaking to someone like, QUENTIN, or builders in the space, specifically, let's say, in Australia, how is Stable and its liquidity pools helping, these types of builders grow, access new customers, grow TVL? Like, what are you guys sort of pitching to new issuers, similar to QUENTIN?
I will admit that it is a big challenge to raise awareness, especially with so much noise in the market about basically a proliferation of different USD denominated stablecoins. And the local stablecoins face unique challenges in gathering, support, because they really do have to focus on their local geography. So one of the questions that I would have is like, well, what is the state of sort of the neo banks, or the new finance industry over in Australia? Are you seeing new financial players that are kind of coming along? Because really, it's a combination of an agreed upon set of standards, whether that's like wallets or consumer facing applications in the case of remittances. And usually these assets gain popularity as users do realize that there are more places to accept and to even interact with these types of instruments. Otherwise, what you're left with is the people that are very familiar with DeFi already, and these are people that are literally looking to make trades, to make yields, and they're used to trading things like meme coins and these other more volatile crypto assets. And when it comes to like, well, how much money can we make trading ADU DF, a stable coin, that's an issue, right? So there's a new audience that has to be brought into it. And so, my question is really revolving around some of these other fintech players in Australia. Are there any sort of like financial institutions that are looking to perhaps adopt them as a group? And then you can sort of introduce the asset as a solution to solve this problem.
Yes, yes, we are seeing some innovation happening. For example, we were actually approached by a group, an innovative group that wanted to basically revolutionize a little bit what's been happening around the royalties payments and the mining industry in Australia. Because, like as you may be aware, there's this very, very large mining industry in Australia, and some of these mines require significant investments. And so some of the investors in these mining ventures typically get paid through various streams, including royalties. And this innovative player is actually trialing currently a new way where these royalty payments would flow through stablecoins. And one of the nicer things about it is that stablecoins are completely programmable, and those royalty payments would would be basically paid at set intervals. And so that is typically the kind of use case where having programmable money is actually very interesting, because you can do much more than, let's say, with the traditional financial system. So we are seeing innovation around those kind of aspects, and people are starting to realize that stable coins do offer programmability, which is very interesting for some of the more repetitive or periodic payments that are happening.
Yeah, appreciate the discussion there. I think we probably are going to wrap up soon with one final discussion topic. So let's talk a little bit about stablecoin cards, right? So imagine, you know, a debit card, something that you can use in physical locations, pay for food, pay for a nice beer, and it draws from your stablecoin account instead of, say, a typical bank account. So open question for everyone on stage, but you know, where do we see non-USD stablecoins like AUDF or others fitting into the stablecoin card market? It is obviously growing. You know, how do we see you know, various markets or stablecoins from different regions kind of vying to be the money that is actually used when transacting with these cards? So again, open for anyone's input here.
Take a stab at it. As Jamie was saying a little bit earlier in the discussion, what you have is you have a network of solvers, right? And some of these bigger, you know, card issuers and neobanks and things that are going to basically participate in these types of activities, they're going to make one of the trades behind the scenes. They're going to do the hard work of conversion behind the scenes. And so how are they going to do that? They're going to want to find the most efficient and fast trades possible happening at lightning speeds. And a lot of times they're going to use these, what we now are seeing as like, you know, DEX aggregators and solvers to find all the liquidity that's possible out there on the internet, and then find what's the cheapest and fast path that I can get to convert one asset to another. And this is a game of speed. It's a game of, you know, who knows where all of the fragmented liquidity is at. And a lot of these things are going to be solved by AI agents. And so by having, you know, a DEX like Stable, like sort of interwoven in there through an API or through an access, these big card issuers can then access our pools of liquidity and execute these trades behind the scenes. The user never sees anything. He just sees like a very, you know, efficient trade, and, you know, the debit go down in his account. And, you know, there will be, depending on the issuer, some markup for this type of service. And it's very important to have these assets that are, you know, precisely configured for these types of trades. And that's where the big value add of a coin issuer like AUDF, who, you know, has a relationship with the Australian fiat, you know, system and the currency. Those assets are the most efficient to do these conversions on, right? And so you have these two forces working in tandem, and then the card issuer is really sort of the layer on top. They're sort of, you know, going through and finding these assets and making these trades for the customer that is not having to log into MetaMask and, you know, do a bunch of crypto conversions and have to be crypto savvy at all. They just have to swipe.
Awesome. Quentin, Jamie, anything else to add there?
So obviously, Aussies are going to use it first and foremost, and then Aussies abroad and people trying to get money in and out of Australia. But the interesting thing is going to see how it kind of works regionally as well. I mean, most of the trade is like 99, 98% plus is USD based at the moment, but you know, a place like Australia has a lot of trading partners already. You know, it does a lot of trade with New Zealand. Like, I'm in Ireland, the UK's there, despite Brexit. There's still, you know, we're neighbours. There's all this people and money and everything flowing back and forth every single day. You know, whether it's goods or services or money or people living abroad. So those kind of use cases are very handy. Obviously, with China there and Australia, like, there's huge trading there, and they're quite resistant to it. I mean, like, I don't see ERC21 stablecoin coming out soon, although that's not to say that people won't do it outside of China. But in the area, like Australia has huge amounts of, they've got all the different islands that are there in the Pacific, and then you've got Indonesia and you've got the Philippines and all these places here as well. So that's kind of where as well, we do already see it through Stable, and kind of going back to that example of like the ZARP South African Rand stablecoin and the CNGN, which is the Nigerian Naira stablecoin. There's a lot of trading happening back and forth between those different pairs, and that's really one of those things that it's completely underrepresented at the moment because everyone has a focus on this. But programmatic traders, they don't really care. They know I want to go from this currency to this currency. And you see some of the different complex routes that they're going through and flipping into different stable coins and flipping into different cryptos. They're going to go back and forth, all in these big atomic swaps. So I definitely see that there's going to be plenty for those sorts of, regional payments where they do want to settle in Aussie dollars, or likewise like with the PHPC.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate that. Great. Well, Quentin, why don't we end things with you sharing where people can check out what you're working on, and then we'll kick it over to the stable team to do the same.
Yes, of course. So basically, yeah, I guess the best place would be to check out our website, which is forteaud.com. And for the more technically savvy, we also have a GitHub, which is also at Forte AUD on GitHub.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and appreciate you being here with us today. Jason, wanna just give a quick reminder to folks on how to participate with Stable.
Absolutely. Stable.finance is the website. App.stable.finance if you really want to get into the trading side of things. We have a very active Discord. You can join that community to learn a little bit more about some trading things going on. As Jamie mentioned earlier, there's a trading competition. If you're an issuer, please reach out to us on our website with Contact Us. We really want to help all the non-USD stablecoins really thrive and succeed. So we've designed special programs to help market and get that initial traction that we're talking about during this discussion. And also, if you're just interested in how this thing works, the team here does have different social media handles. We're very friendly. We're open to collaboration. We believe that stable coins are sort of this, rising tide that's going to lift all the boats in the crypto ecosystem and really, unlock a lot of economic freedom for people all around the world. So we are very excited to be in the stablecoin space and to have a platform that is specifically designed for stablecoins and these emerging RWA assets, commodities, tokenized bonds, gold, silver. You're going to start to see a lot more of these things emerge on our platform as this year comes online.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jamie, as well. Quentin, of course, appreciate you joining us today. Another great episode of Stablecoin Stories. We'll be chopping this up, sharing it in pieces for everyone to enjoy in the future. Thanks everyone who listened in live. Thanks to everybody who will listen to it in the future. And I'm sure we'll be back very soon. Have a great rest of your day.